Module 2, Risk Assessment and Threat Management. Overview of risk assessment. Risk assessment is the process of identifying, analyzing, and evaluating potential risks to an organization's assets, operations, and objectives. It is an essential component of any effective risk management program and helps organizations to understand and prioritize the risks they face. The risk assessment process typically involves the following steps. 1. Identify assets. The first step in the risk assessment process is to identify the assets that are critical to the organization's operations. These may include physical assets such as buildings and equipment, as well as information assets such as data and intellectual property. 2. Identify threats. Once the assets have been identified, the next step is to identify the potential threats that could harm them. Threats may include natural disasters, cyber attacks, and human errors, among others. 3. Assess vulnerabilities. After identifying the potential threats, the next step is to assess the vulnerabilities that exist in the organization's systems and processes. Vulnerabilities are weaknesses that can be exploited by a threat to cause harm. Overall, risk assessment is a critical component of effective risk management. It helps organizations to identify and prioritize the risks they face and develop strategies to manage and mitigate those risks. By understanding and managing their risks, organizations can better protect their assets, operations, and objectives. Threat modeling. Threat modeling is a structured process of identifying and assessing potential threats to a system or application. It is an important part of the overall risk management process and helps organizations to understand and prioritize the security risks they face. The threat modeling process typically involves the following steps. 1. Define the scope. The first step in the threat modeling process is to define the scope of the system or application being analyzed. This includes identifying the boundaries of the system, its components, and the data that it processes. 2. Identify potential threats. Once the scope has been defined, the next step is to identify the potential threats that the system or application may face. This includes considering both internal and external threats, such as unauthorized access, data breaches, and denial of service attacks. 3. Identify vulnerabilities. After identifying the potential threats, the next step is to identify the vulnerabilities that could be exploited by those threats. This includes considering weaknesses in the system or application's architecture, design, and implementation. 4. Analyze and prioritize risks. Once the threats and vulnerabilities have been identified, the next step is to analyze and prioritize the risks they pose. This includes considering the likelihood and potential impact of each risk. Overall, threat modeling is a critical component of effective risk management. It helps organizations to understand the potential threats and vulnerabilities to their systems and applications and develop strategies to manage and mitigate those risks. By taking a proactive approach to security, organizations can better protect their assets, operations, and objectives. Risk management processes. Risk management is the process of identifying, assessing, and prioritizing risks to an organization, and then taking steps to mitigate or manage those risks. The risk management process typically involves the following steps. 1. Risk identification. This involves identifying potential risks that could impact the organization, its operations, or its objectives. Risks can come from a variety of sources, including internal factors such as process failures or human error, or external factors such as natural disasters or cyber attacks. 2. Risk assessment. Once potential risks have been identified, the next step is to assess their likelihood and potential impact. This helps organizations to prioritize which risks to address first and determine appropriate risk management strategies. 3. Risk mitigation. Risk mitigation involves taking steps to reduce or eliminate the likelihood or impact of identified risks. This may involve implementing controls or procedures to reduce the likelihood of a risk occurring, or implementing contingency plans to reduce the impact of a risk should it occur. Overall, the risk management process is an ongoing cycle of identifying, assessing, and mitigating risks. By taking a proactive approach to risk management, organizations can better protect their assets, operations, and objectives, and ensure that they are able to meet their obligations to stakeholders. Thanks for watching. For more information, like, comment, and subscribe our channel.